Welcome, everybody. My name is Kevin Roth. I'm the Education Outreach and Volunteer Coordinator at the Pennypack Ecological Restoration Trust in Huntington Valley. I saw many of you guys were members tonight, so thank you guys for being members. If you're not a member of the trust, we are a private nonprofit land trust with 862 acres. That's our new number. I got to get used to saying that because we're actively buying new land and protecting it. So that's what our members are so important for. If we didn't have our members, we wouldn't be able to have that funding aside, let alone the staffing and the trails and all the other things that we provide. We don't get any funding from state, local, federal governments unless we write grants. So membership is huge. So thank you, members. And if you guys aren't members, please consider doing that. It's only $35 a year at minimum. Obviously, you can do more, but that comes out to less than $3 a month. So if you're not a member, please consider that. If you're not a member, just keep coming to our events, programs, plant sales, and I think you'll eventually learn that we're really of value to the community and the local environment. So thank you guys for joining us tonight. I'm very excited to have Ruth Pfeffer here tonight. She's done programs for us before. She's involved with so many other organizations in Montgomery County and Philadelphia and the local area. She's involved with kids as young as 2 all the way to retirement age. So she's worked with everybody for years. She's so much fun to go on bird walks with, and you can really learn a lot with her every time you talk to her. She is the owner of Birding with Ruth, and she will be happy to go through her story tonight. I'm sure it'll be a little bit different than I've seen before, so I'm very excited. And all of this is to teach you guys, you can do this in your own yard. You can go out birding. And hopefully you guys learn about some of the plants that you can use to attract and some of the birds that will come to your yard from doing that. And if you do get excited, we have our plant sale this Saturday. And I'm sure that some of the species that she talks about today will be at our plant sale. So thank you, Ruth, for taking the time to do this for us. I'm excited to have you here. Like I said, if you have any questions, throw those in the chat box. But here we have Ruth Pfeffer.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for coming. Now, Kevin, I have something, get it, leave meeting. What do I do there? And it's got the little camera that came up.
Sorry, what did it say?
It says this meeting is being recorded by a host or a participant.
Yep, just hit approve or got it. Just accept that.
Get it. Is that what I do? Push that?
Yep. Yes, accept it.
All righty, everybody. Always a little technical question. Well, good evening, everyone. This is my granddaughter, who is now a pediatric nurse down in Florida, and she is surrounded by native plants. My son was a wildflower distributor in Jersey a number of years ago, and I will show you, this is his front yard. And all of these are native plants. And they're Joe Pye weed and ironweed, celosia, cathedral flowers, and that just our yards and our woodlands, our wetlands, areas like Pennypack are super important to our migratory birds. I'm going to take you to our yard first. This is a sharp-shinned hawk. And of course, they come down for our little birds, but it's part of our ecological system. Downy woodpecker, I have peanut feeders. Hairy woodpecker, and a hairy and a downy, of course, look very similar, but look how wide. The hairy woodpecker bill is as wide as its head, and that's the male with the little red spot. It's actually a first-year male. The red cap is not fully developed yet, and that is suet that the bird is on. And these are the offspring of hairies from the year before, and they're feeding one another. The parent bird was feeding them the day before, and it was just so awesome to watch birds in our backyards also, because no matter where we go in the world, we come back to our yards, which are very special. Northern flicker dropped in one day, and you can see he's eating, he's trying to probe a seed out of there, and he actually spent the morning on the deck and then hopped down. White-throated sparrows are ready to leave. They sing Old Sam Peabody, and they haven't been singing around my home for 2 days, so I think they took off. It's one of our winter residents, but they took off for the north. I have 3 bird baths on my deck. I have a bowl and a rock and a shell in this one because just like we're different sizes, so are the birds. So they're more comfortable. And the other 2 bird baths I'll be showing you. Chipping sparrow is usually the first bird that shows up at our feeders, the first migratory bird that shows up at our feeders. And of course, that's also at pennypack. Ruby-throated hummingbirds are in this week. They've been seen by numbers. This is one of the feeders. I have native honeysuckle. I suggest to everyone. It is one of the plants I most enjoy because I get hummingbirds. I don't always fill the feeders because I go away so much. So the honeysuckle really, really is a pleasure to have, and it's at the left-hand side of my deck. And it really grows fast, and you really have very little trimming to do. And it grows, well, mine right now, I think is about 8 feet high. All right. Birds when you put anything out in the yard, birds will land on anything. So we have to be careful with some of the things we put out. But there's a female ruby-throated hummingbird who really feels she's in charge of that whole honeysuckle plant. And I put a nest in there because to name plants, plants are super important. You cannot separate migratory birds from vegetation. I mean, it's so important. The ruby-throated hummingbird lines its outside of its nest with the lichens. That beautiful, beautiful, it's a fungi-like material that is on the trees in the early spring, like little turquoise in color. Well, here's my herbs. And I put this there because it's amazing when they go to flower and when they go to seed, birds like to eat. So my yard is really not prim and proper. It's for the birds. And they have taught me many things through the years. And there is northern cardinal eating one of the buds from the time I planted. So I let it just go to seed like I do other things. The male is waiting at the bird bath to take a turn for the blossoms. Bird baths are super important for the hygiene of birds because they need to clean their feathers. And just look at this bird. There are hundreds of feathers on this northern cardinal. And I know he's looking at me. By the way, I am inside all of these photos, except for the ruby-throated hummingbird. I'm at the end of my deck. All of them I take through my kitchen windows, so I'm not disturbing them. Well, gray catbirds, they arrived also this week. So let's have a little fun with some of the fledglings. The gray catbirds are really partial to the peanut feeder and the suet. There it is, one of my other bird baths. And it's one of the fledglings. There were 4 fledglings this particular year, and do they love to bathe once they get used to it. I was really worried about where the tail was of this fledgling, so I persevered, and there it was fine because that was a strange position for it to be in. And this is all on my deck with the vegetation. I let the vegetation grow high, so it really occupies me. A native plant that never got in the ground because the fledglings started to play with the petals and they would turn them upside down. They would make a game at them. And by the way, the little shell there in the background, I have a couple rocks in that, and I also fill a couple other shells. I put water in it because sometimes birds like the privacy of just coming over for a drink of water, not getting in the bird bath. There is the fledgling, another one with a dark leaf, playing with it. And as I said, everything you put in the yard, birds will use. We have to be careful. My husband got a birdhouse for a gift for, well, small birds. And he woke me up very early one morning. He says, remember you said a chickadee wouldn't come into the box? Come down and look. And sure enough, there was a chickadee already going in. The female must have been inside already, having a nice juicy insect to feed her. And I thought this was a cute picture. I looked out the window one day, and that's a frog on the bird feeder, and the chickadee standing next to it. I thought it was a funny photo. 2 years ago, a house wren, I could hear it calling in the yard, and I got out a house that I didn't secure yet. And I went inside, had lunch, and when I came out, the house wren moved right in. So I tried to put some bushes around it, and sure enough, they used that house and raised some young in it. The house wren is very, very opportunistic and moves in very quickly to our nest. Cicadas, when they come out, the sound, I don't think we had a big year a couple years ago, but part of our yards are the cicadas, that's for sure. In the springtime, indigo buntings, I'm sure, are arriving. And birds of different species. This, by the way, is Niger. That's another thing that I have, and also black oilseed. But you see the American goldfinch to the right and indigo bunting. And even though I live on a corner property, I live across from woods, and I've had as many as 5 indigo buntings in my yard at one time. And the white-breasted nuthatch loves to be on the peanuts, and that's one of our birds that stay around. I don't usually show hawks dining, but since he's dining on a European starling, I thought it would be safe. And I was glad. European starlings, of course, are invasive. And for those of us backyard bird feeders, we really kind of resent the amount of food that they eat after a while. And the IRS will not let you claim it, by the way. Mourning doves are really beautiful. Take time to look at them. You see the Williamsburg blue around the mourning dove, and they really are sweet with one another also. I like the red feet with the toenails, and the male lays on the ground when he's doing his courtship, and his Williamsburg blue color on his primaries, and he spreads his tail, and then he cocks his head with that little with the prominent eye ring, as if to say, I'm the prettiest. And it's really nice to watch birds up close and personal in our yards. Rose-breasted grosbeaks arrived this week, along with Baltimore orioles. That's the male, and this is the female. Little puddles, if you have a place for a little puddle, very, very important, because birds really love to bathe. And I make an indentation right near my feeders and a puddle, and you know, you can stand almost right next to them. They're so oblivious when they're bathing. So it's food, shelter, and water, what we need and what our birds need all year round. There's Kevin's chestnut-sided warbler, which says, pleased to meet you, Miss Beecher. All right. And last year I came back from a bird walk, and the chestnut-sided warbler was in my bird bath. I was so excited, and it actually landed on the railing of my deck before it flew away. Yellow-rumped warbler. Yellow-rumped warblers, let's talk about climate change, because distribution of birds is happening, and it's not necessarily good for our warblers, because their main food source they eat are insects while they're here. But this yellow-rumped warbler stayed around till early December. And I don't know how far now. Cape May, you can see yellow-rumped warblers, but usually not in this area. But every year now for the last 4 years, yellow rumps and 5 or 6 other species have shown up on the Philadelphia bird count. And some of them just won't make it, but that's climate change, what's happening. The Carolina wren is such a fun bird to have. If you want a Carolina wren to come to your yard, just put a pile of debris and a few branches, and just put your yard debris in from, you know, leaves and everything you pick off. And within a year or two, you'll have a Carolina wren in your yard. It loves to forage in a pile like that. And I am happy to say that it came. These are the fledglings from last year. This is one fledgling trying, he's calling. He's really giving him a chatter. He's scolding his sibling that will not get on the bird bath. He's trying to encourage him, which he eventually did get in the bird bath. And then got up on the chair and was preening and everything. And the hygiene, they really have to keep themselves so clean. And I have no idea what this little fledgling that just got out of the bath, out of the bird bath, but it's really digging in for something. And it was so industrious while it did it. There was a little bit of rain in the morning, so there was some water dripping off of this candle holder. that Carolina wren. Remember I said it's not prim and proper. I let my plants go to seed. And when you're done with these plants, all right, which I have to do yet in the yard, because during the winter time, woodpeckers and other birds will come to those plants because there are nutrients in there. So, and what I do when I am going to dump the soil, I dump it all in one pile because there are still nutrients in there. And birds, even during the summer that are nesting, you will see them probing for seeds and other nutrients that are in there. Ovenbird. An ovenbird usually doesn't come to everyone's backyard, all right? But because, and you can see the yard debris, because an ovenbird doesn't go to our bird feeder, but not all birds that come to your yard do go to your bird feeders. So that's what makes it interesting, because they'll come because of the call, or they'll come for the water in the bird baths, or just really for the habitat. My yard's like a haven, so there's lots of other vegetation. I should say right at this point, I have serviceberry, I have winterberry, I have blueberries, I have wild berries. All right, that is a very important source. If you are getting, if you're going to go to the plant sale and you are getting, definitely plant berries, because that's something that the winter birds really, really rely on. And with so many birds being stuck here because of climate change, you're really, really helping them out. Hawthorn trees are super important. And pokeberry, I leave some pokeberry, which is native. That can really be a pest, so you have to watch how much of it. So that's some of the plants. I do have mountain laurel. I have 4 mountain laurel that are the native mountain laurel. I have a hemlock tree, and I have 1 ash tree left out of the 6 ash trees, and I have 3 wild cherry trees on my property. But think of wildflowers, trillium, of course, black-eyed Susies. This is a little moth that I haven't been able to identify yet, and it's in 3 segments on one of the black-eyed Susies in the garden. A painted lady on asters, and there's a black swallowtail. My grandchildren that are all grown right now, the little one there, Daniel, is 21 this year, and that's Laura and Kayla. And Danny, my son Dan, raised a lot of his native plants in the yard. They are looking for frogs that where frogs, there's a creek not far from them. So frogs really started coming up into their yard. Cornell is a wonderful source. If you are planting your yard and you want to plant for birds, and definitely use native, go to yardmap.org, because it is a wonderful source. They will help you with questions and help you plan your yard map. It's really, I highly recommend that if you need help or you have some questions to answer. Water features are super important. This was on my son's property. Warblers love the sound of running water, and I will pass that on to you. These are all different bird feeders with native plants all around, a wonderful array. There's all different kinds you can get, even that are squirrel busters, that are squirrel proof. And also, if you're going, a lot of people are putting ponds and everything in now, because a lot of people are spending more time at home. And there are wonderful, wonderful water plants that you can put in, or shade plants. And some people really are putting rock features in. So there are ferns, like rock ferns, that you can put in, and all different kinds of shade native plants that are available if you're going to have a water feature. And don't forget your mosses. This is pincushion moss. I have a natural moss that actually covered over an eroded part of, I have a hill, and my natural moss really covered it in very, very nicely. If you have some kind of ornament that you want to put in the yard, you can plant native flowers all around it. All right, cone flowers are beautiful. I suggest that gardeners do not Do not take the cluster off of your flowers. That's a great spangled fritillary on the top of it. And of course, it's also called echinacea, because butterflies and some birds will come to that in the fall. So don't top the flowers until after the fall, I suggest to you. Dogwood is one of the wildflowers that I have on my property. And of course, the black-eyed Susies and daisies are just really wonderful. Red-winged blackbirds arrive in March. This is the male, of course, and this is the female. And I put in the nest there. This nest, unfortunately, somebody was pruning and it gave to me. But you can see the egg is like pale blue, and that's scribbling. It looks like scribbling, but every egg of the red-winged blackbird will have a different mark on it, which I find very interesting. I think it's for camouflage, all right, but it was worth sharing to you. Eastern bluebirds, which of course we know are at Pennypack and lots of other places, and what a beautiful bird to have. They can nest in February or March and then have a second brood. There's a nice female with a nice juicy insect, one of our pollinators, I'm sure. And the behavior of these birds I saw at Pennypack years ago for the first time. And they're going in and out of a box that's there, and they're teaching the young birds to go in and out. And I was really confused about the behavior at first until I saw the behavior again. And I actually, because they're cavity nesters, but bluebirds really, really rarely now are in cavities because we have so many houses out for them. So I believe that they're teaching the birds to go in, to fly in and out of the cavity, the houses, because that's what bluebirds now really use. Tree swallows, familiar if you walk at Pennypack for sure. Absolutely gorgeous birds. They are cavity nesters also. The highest tree swallow I ever saw was 50 feet high at Militia Hill State Park, and its cavity was 50 feet high, which amazed me. And of course, thanks to Pennypack for putting those sticks up, now the tree swallows can stay closer to the opening of their home and watch. And lots of other places have now put the sticks up because of Pennypack doing it. And I'm Pennypack's #1 fan, by the way. I think it's a fantastic organization, and the board of directors is fine. All their staff are terrific. It's a wonderful place to go, and hip hip for Pennypack. I really am a fan. Well, does anybody ever wonder what happens to the birds when they leave? Well, if you're lucky enough to go down Cape May in the fall, I suggest it, especially when there's going to be maybe a storm coming, because this is a flock of 5,000 tree swallows. And what they're doing, and they're constantly calling to one another. They're constantly messaging. And what they do is they go up, and this is right before dusk. They go up, they go down in the vegetation, they come up again. It really is amazing to see. And there's other swallows that can be there. I put this in for fun. I went to McGee Marsh to mainly see the fallout of the warblers there. And in the parking lot, tree swallows were arriving that day by the hundreds, and they only have so many boxes. And there was at least 20 to 40 tree swallows competing for the boxes. So my friend Sharon and I are ready to leave, and we see this male tree swallow so excited it found a cavity. Look at the cavity, all right, that little, which was a pipe at one time in there. Well, he called her, and when she came over, she got almost excited. She almost went in totally. That picture's a little blurry because they were moving and chatting at the same time. And we got tired of watching them, but I am sure that driver eventually pulled off, and they got the idea that it really wasn't going to be a good nesting spot for them. Barn swallows is another swallow in our area. And notice there's a stick in that mud there. There's always plants involved when we're around birds. The fullest nest I ever saw was over Alberthorpe Park, and there's 6. Imagine. Did they keep the parents so busy? But I also put this in there because you can see white feathers, because barn swallows mainly make their nest out of mud and put sticks in it, but they also line it with white feathers, which is amazing, a fledgling of the barn swallow. He was so cute to watch. It was the youngest one that I ever saw. And he really perched there. You see the big feet for such a little guy. And he perched there and he preened, preened and everything, and then just held his head up. He was so cute to watch. Morning cloak butterflies, we usually see them first. This is the first butterfly. That's because they plant their eggs here in the fall. So naturally, that would be our first spring butterfly, usually by March. That's when I was a kid and, still can see it at that point. Well, Pennypack is full of wonderful native plants, and it was one of the best things that they ever did. In fact, they were an organization that really got ahead of it. Houston Meadow was, at the same time that really got ahead to save our migratory birds. And even though the invasive plants were always fighting them, but all those fields that Pennypack put in are super terrific. Queen Anne's lace is one of my favorite. And of course, we have deer and red fox. And as you're walking down in those fields, orchard orioles, which I'm sure they're in, this is the male singing away. Female orchard oriole, and someone I was in a garden in Massachusetts, and this is a homemade bird feeder, which most of my mentors had in their yards because there really wasn't a lot of bird feeders out now. But that oriole, the female orchard oriole, was really enjoying it. And I used to have rice pudding in a cup like that when I was a kid. Eastern kingbird, you'll see in the fields, and you can see them also in the woods. There's a male that was ready for courtship, and we're doing a little display when he saw a female. That is an eastern kingbird on a nest. That nest is about 50 feet high. It's in a sycamore. And I'll mention the sycamore trees. You can see, never walk past a sycamore tree in the spring, all right? Because you can see as many as 20 species. Even red-winged blackbirds will be up there. It really, really is one of the popular trees. And also it's a popular tree for nesting species in our area. American goldfinch and its breeding plumage, of course. These are all birds that could be seen in the field. Meadowlark, our bobolink, ching, ching, ping, ping, ching, ching. All right, they don't nest there, but the fields are very important as a stopover for those bobolinks before they go further north. And indigo bunting, of course, in the field every year. Fire, here. And you can see them in any field, by the way. I put song sparrow in, even though it's not a migratory bird, but you will see song sparrow all over. It's at all different habitats the song sparrow can be at Trust. And royal great crested flycatcher, rather, and warbling vireo. And these birds, when you're going down from the first field, there's that little trail where I think the photographers take pictures. Well, in one tree, you'll have the warbling vireo, sometimes the orchard oriole nest down there. And that's the nest of, you can see the tail, the nest of the warbling vireo. They use exfoliated bark from the river birch tree to make their nest. It's quite beautiful. So that's the other bird that can be down there. Monarch butterflies are super important, as is the milkweed that the Trust has planted. And you can plant this at home. Monarchs are really in trouble. And a lot of it is to do with climate change, loss of habitat. So you could really help out with monarch butterflies by planting some milkweed. Palm warblers can be seen in the fields, along with the Nashville warbler, civet say. It's a bird of the north, but the fields are very important to it as it's moving north. And ruby-crowned kinglets, that also likes the fields to be in. Well, woods are super important, and I wanted to mention a keystone species, because if it wasn't for our woodpeckers, keystone species means it's critical to the ecosystem, and woodpeckers are so critical to the woodland woodland species that the decline would be amazing if they didn't have the holes, because they excavate holes every year. Their cavities, they do not use the same, but a lot of other species use those cavities. All right. And even a snag that a woodpecker works on, that is one of the most important things in the woodlands, by the way. So when you're looking at woodlands and looking at woodpeckers, just keep in mind how super important they are to our woodlands. Our woodlands would not be the same without our woodpeckers in there. And there's one of those snags, I'm telling you, the pileated woodpecker. We need those snags up there, just like we need some dead trees. Dead trees are important to 85 species in North America. That's how important they are. So here's some of the warblers you can see in the woodlands. Black Burnian warbler, is that not beautiful? Bay-breasted warbler, and these birds will be coming in May. Black-throated blue warbler, female Parola, northern Parola warbler, and black-throated green. And now we're going to move on to our pollinators. If you're going to Central and South America, the pollinators mostly are bees and bats, not so in North America. So bees, which are super important, let's thank a bee every day. That's a skipper butterfly. Again, there's the coneflower, but butterflies are also pollinators. This is a fleabane beetle on a fleabane plant, which looks very, very much like milkweed, by the way, and it is also native. I think it's the prettiest beetle I ever saw. Snipe flies. The only time I ever saw snipe flies, they were mating. I have not ever seen that. By the way, they pollinate viburnums, and the female is the larger, and then the man. They're actually beautiful with that gold on there, and a bumblebee. All right, and I love this picture because I caught the pollen on the left leg, because they have like bristles, bees, as they're gathering, going from flower, and that is how they spread it. And the information I read about bees this year, how important they are, that every third bite of food we take, we should thank a bee. That's how many plants are pollinated, how dependent we are on our bees. So every third bite of food, that's really a powerful thought to keep in our mind. This is imitating a bee. It's a fly, actually. Marmalade is its name, and this is one of our pollinators, green darner. But dragonflies, when I showed you those water features, it's been proven that if you put in native plants, you will attract more dragonflies. Guess what dragonflies eat? Mosquitoes, everyone. So let's get those dragonflies busy. And that's the male of the whitetail. And damselfly, another skipper. So here we are at our beautiful wetlands on Pert. Very, very important part. Again, it's accommodating to so many other species. And of course, there's native trees all over, and which is super important. Great blue herons. You can see great blue herons in trees. You can see them in the water, and you can also see them walking in grasses. This great blue heron was eating, and it was wiggling its feet, and it was eating grasshoppers. But they eat mice. Herons and egrets have a tremendous diversified diet. They will even eat small birds. They eat all different kinds of marine life and all different kinds of mammals and insects. And by the way, they eat the ones that are injurious to our plants, not the good guys, which is nice. Wood duck is there anything prettier than a male and female wood duck? They're just beautiful. I love this shot of the wood duck. Wilson snipe you can find at the wetlands. Green heron, eastern painted turtle, solitary sandpiper going along the edge, great egret. I'm really not sure if that's a fish or exactly what kind of creature, but it ate quite a few of them while I was watching it. And of course, rivet are frogs. Magnolia warbler, you can often find near water. It says wheatio. Blue-headed vireo, although this is a woodland bird, When they're migrating, you can find them around the wetlands. A lot of birds that are from the woodlands and other areas, they go to visit wetlands. That's how important wetlands are to our, not only to our migratory, our resident birds, because most birds visit. I think it's 75% visit. 75% of the habitat of wetlands in the world are visited by birds. 75% of birds go there. Belted kingfisher, and willow trees are very are around the wetlands. It can be in other areas, but willow trees is another tree. If you're going to put in a tree, put in a native willow, because they have a lot of insects that they attract, and warblers and others of our other songbirds, our migratory birds, love the willow. I lost mine. And I really miss it because I don't get as many warblers and other birds in my yard because of that. But get it, definitely a willow is another thing. Well, there's one of our eagles and a nest of the bald eagle. And I thought I would put in a picture of what immature bald eagle looks like perched. This is a very young bird. This is a very young bird flying. You can see white axillaries, which is their armpits. That's indication of the adult bald eagle. And there, of course, is our adult bald eagle. And I put this in a turkey vulture. Turkey vulture always flies with a dihedral. Bald eagle flies with flat wings. So that's the best way for you to remember that. All right, red-tailed hawks, bird, Cooper's hawk, ready to strike there. Great horned owls. And notice that tree in the camouflage. These are species that you can find at different places throughout the trust. Scarlet tanagers, I'm sure they'll be coming in a week or two. Black-billed cuckoo, because I've seen that at different places at the trust. And there, of course, is our winter berries and cedar waxwings. You want to attract, have cedar berries. The other, I think I already said I have serviceberry. I added that. Birds love that, to pick on it. Rose-breasted grosbeak. There's the female, there's the male. And just remember that the property at the trust, the property in your yard and parks are equally as important as this rainforest. This rainforest is in Belize. And that's so important because what we do in our yards and how we are with our birds, don't forget they go to places like this in the winter. So they're equally important, our rainforest and our properties. All right. And there's our, I had to put some of our wild turkeys in if you're going to perch, that's for sure. And of course, this show is a tribute. I always gift it to the trust in memory of my husband, Dan, who was my #1 fan. You can see fellow photographer also. And we really had a wonderful life together. And there I am, very grateful to go as many places as I've traveled in my life. But it's always nice to come back home and see the birds in my yard, or come back to this is early spring. One of my favorite plants is the wintercress, the first mustard that comes out in the spring. And I say, remember the plant sale is Sunday, and go pert. And it's always a pleasure to be with all of you.